Who's your commander?
Good luck.
Equip.
Move to combat.
Resolves.
Now, before you attack
Does
me,
anyone have an answer?
well played.
Good game.
Hello, I'm Jumbo Commander, and this is a deck tech centered around artifact tokens. I've been inspired from the new cards in Ixalan, and my favorite has to be Revel in Riches. 4 and a black for an enchantment that reads, whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a colorless treasure artifact token that you can sacrifice to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. But the more important text, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game. This deck is all about amassing riches and winning the game, but it's not just Revel in Riches. Remember mechanized production? It's another win condition based on artifacts. You can enchant an artifact you control, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you create another one. And if you control 8 or more artifacts with the same name as one another, you win the game. So you could be a few artifacts short of Revel in Riches, and bam, mechanized production, and you've won the game. How about one more? Hellkite Tyrant. The wins with Hellkite Tyrant are so satisfying. It's a dragon that steals your opponent's artifacts. Yeah, that's fine and all, but if you control 20 or more artifacts at the beginning of your upkeep, you win the game. Oh, I love this text, and so I'm going to amass a ton of artifacts, and then I'm going to promptly win the game. By the way, I might have undersold Hellkite Tyrant's other ability. Stealing your opponent's soul rings and artifact mana is like really, really good. Okay, but let's get into it. How are we going to make all of this treasure? Well, there's a bunch of really good cards from Ixalan that can make treasure. We have Ruthless Knave, Sailor of Means, Prosperous Pirates, Deadeye Plunderers, and Captain Lannery Storm herself. I'm particularly excited about the Deadeye Plunderers because I think they can put up a pretty strong long game by just producing treasure after treasure after treasure. But then more importantly, I think they can get stupid big and be their own threat. And Captain Lannery Storm does that too, but only with treasures, and I think I'm not just dealing with treasures here. So it looks like we're going Grixis Pirates here, but there are a few spells that create treasure that are not pirates, although pirate-themed, Contract Killing and Pirate's Prize are 2 sorceries. I don't think they're particularly exciting, but I really do love treasure, so there we go. I also really want to include green in this deck because Vraska is like the pirate planeswalker. It can kill a creature or enchantment and then give me a treasure. And so now I'm splashing into green too. We're going to have an argument pretty soon about what commander to play with this deck. I also have to mention Trove of Temptation and Treasure Map. It's an enchantment that deals with treasures that you might not want to play because it really opens you up to attacks. Trove of Temptation, I don't know about you, but Treasure Map is sweet because it gives you some card advantage, and if the treasure map flips, you can just start changing in your treasure for cards. I like cards. So with the introduction of Vraska, what colors are we going to play? Because I was going to rely on a very heavy artifact commander. I was going to rely on Breya, Etherium, Shaper to lead this deck. It's got the Grixis colors in there, and white does some good stuff with artifacts too. Breya herself can cash in some of those treasure tokens to control the board and deal damage. I mean, it sounded like a no-brainer, but Vraska's got the green. Actually, there's more than Vraska I want to play with green in it. If I'm going to be making a lot of artifact tokens, I'm going to want to double them up. So cards like Anointed Procession and Doubling Season and Parallel Lives are going to be really, really important. So now I've mentioned that I wanted Grixis and I want white and green as well. So it sounds like I'm kind of locked into a 5-color deck. By the way, if Doubling Season is way out of your budget for a janky deck like this that wants to win with artifact tokens, I would also run Second Harvest. So don't feel like you need to skimp on green just because you don't have a Doubling Season in your collection. So personally, I've landed on 5 colors, and my token artifact commander, well, has to be a token commander, Sliver Queen. She's 5 colors, okay, and she creates tokens. They're not artifacts, there's no synergy there, but I've got to say, Sliver Queen is pretty powerful. And Sliver Queen also has some combo potential, so maybe if you feel like you need to ramp up the power level of this deck while still contain some jank, well, you can throw a combo in here and there with your commander. Sliver Queen might draw a little bit of hate, but I think you'll be able to diffuse the hate situation the first time you play your pirate. Of course, I do think that Breya would be a solid choice, especially if you have that, but maybe switch out the white for green, and in that case, I would combine Tana the Bloodsower and Silas Renn Seeker Adept. Tana makes tokens, Silas Renn deals with artifacts. It seems like a no-brainer. I do think that white is the least important color, but I've gone with a 5-color build because I really wanted those white cards. I think they had a cool interaction. You also might be very hesitant to spend close to $40 on a Sliver Queen for a deck that wins with treasure tokens. Now, picking up a Sliver Queen might be a good idea anyways. She's on the reserve list, and slivers are coming back. They just are. They're always coming back. It just is a matter of when. People love slivers. And so picking up a Sliver Queen might just be an okay investment, but I understand, that's a lot of money. So how about Ramos Dragon Engine? And even though we're not using Ramos to the true potential that he can reach, he will still let you play all your colors and could give you an advantage later on in the game when you're just chaining spells together. You might even end up cashing in those treasure tokens to pump Ramos up. So we have a bunch of potential commanders. We have half a dozen pirate cards that make treasure, and a few very tenuous win conditions. Where on earth is this deck going? Okay, I gotta say, there's more to this deck than just treasure. Now, I left a treasure card out that I mentioned previously, not only because it's like the best treasure card, but also because it's an excellent transition. It's Spell Swindle. You can counter a spell, and then you make as many treasure tokens as that spell's converted mana cost. That is a lot of artifact tokens, and then you double it, and you double it, and then you just win the game. But it's not all about treasure, I gotta say. The card that really makes me think of this is Confirm Suspicions. This janky 5-mana counterspell does something really similar. It lets you investigate 3 times. Now, investigate creates these clues, and they're artifact tokens that have 2 sacrifice this artifact, draw a card. Ooh, now we can expand into a whole nother realm of artifact tokens. We have clues to look at, and clues are so cool. I mean, some of the best has got to be Tomio's Journal, giving you a clue every turn and letting him cash him in for a tutor. I mean, it's not the cheapest tutor, but clues! Uvenwald Mysteries fits right in with our token theme. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, investigate, and whenever you sack a clue, you get a 1/1 white soldier token. I can just imagine one of my doubling enchantments giving me double the clues and then double the soldiers when I sack those clues. Weirding Wood just fits really well. We're playing a 5-color deck, so it fixes and generates a clue. But the all-star's got to be Tireless Tracker, giving you clue after clue after clue. You should buy this card. It's really low right now, under $4, and it's so good. I also feel like I need to include Bygone Bishop. It's a really powerful card as well. I don't know if it fits very well. It depends on how many creatures you're running in this deck, and it doesn't even trigger off of most of our pirates. I also feel like I need to mention Thraben Inspector. If you want some more clues, this is just a good 1-mana way to get a clue. Now, there are certainly more clue producers. I felt like this should be more of a sub-theme because Revel in Riches really needs treasure to go off, so I wanted to really go heavy on the treasure, but I also wanted to supplement it with some other clues. But I really want some more unique tokens, and that's where Faerie Artisans and Feldon of the Third Path come in. Faerie Artisans gives you a token every time your opponents play a creature. The catch is that the old one goes away. Feldon of the Third Path lets you put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature card in your graveyard, except it's an artifact. Very nice. You do have to sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. That's kind of similar to Faerie Artisans' requirement that you sacrifice the token when you make a new one. But both of these have a very unique ability. You get to play with so many cool cards, and you get those enter the battlefield triggers. Phyrexian Rebirth. It wipes the board and creates an XX colorless artifact token where X is the things it wiped away. And actually, now that I think about it, board wipes are very strong in this deck, because what you're doing is you're building up a store of artifact tokens, and so you feel like you could pretty easily wipe the board. Also, your Revel in Riches triggers when your opponent's creatures die, so this could be a very good controlling shell. Pia and Kieran Nalaar remind us that we could go wide with artifact token creatures. We could be pumping out Murs or Thopters, throw in a Skull Clamp, so that's a whole avenue that we could go down. I gotta say that if you're going with the Breya Etherium Shaper plan, then that might be something you might want to pursue. Also gotta say that Breya Etherium Shaper definitely goes in the 5-color deck, because I think that she is very powerful even if she's not your commander. And of course, there are other powerful artifacts that create tokens. I gotta say, one of my favorites is Coil Engine. I really like the idea of putting a mechanized production on Coil Engine, and then when my Coils die, I create double the 3/3 worms. And also, we've been talking about treasure, but there's the old school treasure, which is gold. Here's the new Curse of Opulence. You could just end up with a bunch of gold, but maybe go OG gold creator with King Makar, the Gold Cursed. There's not a lot of good ways to inspire King Makar in this deck, but you might be able to find a little inspired package if you need to. Now, if you're interested in going a little bit more artifact heavy, you could include one of the best token producers out there, Mirrorworks, a 5-mana artifact that does nothing until another artifact enters the battlefield. But when it does, you can pay 2 and then just make a whole other token copy of it. And with the token doublers, it just goes crazy. You can make copies of crazy artifacts like Coil Engines or mere battle spheres, but I really think you need to have a critical mass of artifacts for this technique to work. And that actually transitions me into our next topic, which is turning tokens into value. Because I was thinking about having a critical mass of artifacts and what those artifacts could be used for. And one of the first things I came up with was improvise. Inspiring Statuary is a very interesting card, and it could go really well in this deck, because we might have a lot of treasure sitting around doing nothing, and instead we can use it to cast big spells. I particularly like Inspiring Statuary because you want a lot of artifacts, but then you want a lot of non-artifact spells, so you can improvise them out. It's actually a really cool balance, and so if you're going a little bit less artifact spells, then Inspiring Statuary gets even better. There are a few other cards with improvise on them. Herald of Anguish is great. I mean, you can just start cashing in those treasure or clue tokens to punish your opponent's hands. And War of Invention, letting you war out a key artifact. And if you are relying on a key artifact, War of Invention reminded me of cards like Inventor's Fair, Kadoltha Forgemaster, Transmute Artifact, or the king of transforming artifacts, Arkham Dagson. Arkham might require a little bit more of a build around if you want to throw them in your deck, because you do need artifact creatures and powerful non-creature artifacts in your deck. So maybe if you're going with the Breya, Pia, Kieran Nalaar sort of Thopter build with a backup of a cool combo piece, Arkham might fit really well in there. But to be honest, Arkham's really, really powerful as head of his own deck. I think I might be less about the tutoring aspect here, but more just about value. And there are a few value cards that interact with artifacts that I love to play. Trading Post is basically the artifact planeswalker. I think my favorite mode on this has got to be 1 tap, sacrifice an artifact to draw a card. I plan on having a lot of artifacts on the battlefield, so changing my treasure into cards sounds really good. I also really like the way Shattergang Brothers controls the table. You can cash in that dumb pirate that already gave you treasure as an edict effect. You can cash in those treasure tokens to hate out your opponent's artifact mana ramp or fixing. That could be really cool. And Duretti gives you value by giving you excellent card draw, but then also has the ability to just switch artifacts. You sacrifice an artifact and then you get an artifact from your graveyard straight onto the battlefield. So you can get back your Trading Post or your Coil Engine just at the cost of a few loyalty and a treasure token. Now, so far I've explained a lot of tokens that have incidental value. Drawing cards or creating mana, that's not pressuring anyone or controlling the board. I've given you a lot of examples of value, but I haven't really explained a way to win. Well, I guess I have. I've given you 3 ways to win, and they're all quite janky and easily disrupted. But there are a few other ways to control the board and win in this deck. I'd like to first talk about Underhanded Designs. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield, not even non-token, just any artifact enters the battlefield, you can pay 1 and then drain all your opponents. Ooh. Now, I could also cash it in to kill something, but I really want to keep draining my opponents over and over again, especially if I'm just generating clues and artifacts all over the place. Marionette Master also does a great job of draining. I'm going to stack up all of the Fabricate directly on top of her and then sacrifice all of my treasures to drain out the table. It's going to be great. Gear per Ether Grid is way slower than Marionette Master, but you can reuse it over and over again. You tap a bunch of your artifacts and then ping, 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 ping. Wow. I can just imagine the slow death of your opponents as you just keep tapping all your stupid artifact tokens. If you Ether Grid someone to death, I'm all about this. You can also go a little bit more janky with the station cards. Summoning Station and Blasting Station are represented here. But if you put the whole station together, you get this awesome assembly line of chaos, and some of them work really well even with the strategies we have. Summoning Station lets you put a 2/2 pincher token into play. But then whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard, you can untap Summoning Station. So we might choose to cash in all of our treasure to get a bunch of mana and cast a big spell. Well, we can activate Summoning Station in between each sacrifice and then get that many 2/2 pincher creatures. What? I'm going to look up the pincher creature token right now. I really hope it exists. I'll be right back. All right, we got ourselves a good news, bad news situation. The bad news is that it was never made into a token. But the good news is they commissioned the art. So the art for the token exists even though they suspended the player's reward program before the token could be created. So now I want to present the equally adorable and horrifying 2/2 colorless pincher creature token. Isn't this... You need to leave in the comments if this is spectacular and adorable or horrifying. Oh, why was this not a token? I would play Summoning Station so often if I had these pincher tokens. All right, but don't you want an army of these little guys for every single... Moving on. The next way to win the game is with a combo that slots very well into this strategy, and that's the Thopter Sword combo. Now, this combo distinctly does not have synergy with your existing treasure and gold tokens because Thopter Foundry says non-token artifact. But what this does have synergy with is all of the Underhanded Designs, the Marionette Masters, and some of the sacrifice effects that you might find in this deck, like Krark Clan Ironworks. I thought I'd throw it in there just in case you were interested, and now I'm going to move on to a different combo, which feels very similar, and that's Time Sieve. But it works way better because it has you sacrifice 5 artifacts to take an extra turn after this one. That is very powerful, and when you're pumping out treasure and tokens and mechanizing another token every turn, Time Sieve can be real value. I mean, the natural pairing is with Thopter Assembly, but just throw in a value Time Sieve just to take an extra turn every so often, that seems really fun. And the last win condition I have for you, it's causing me to get a little bit emotional because it's something I want to do so badly. And that's flood the board with treasure tokens, clue tokens, all sorts of crazy tokens, double them up. And then when your opponent thinks you're just spinning your wheels and nothing's happening, you cast a card like Warp World or the Great Aurora. You might be looking at this wall of text and these 8 and 9 mana cards and thinking to yourself, what on earth? But this is what Commander is all about. Basically, Warp World says you take all of your permanents and you put them into your library, and then you flip over that many cards and those permanents end up on the battlefield. The Great Aurora does something really similar, where basically you take all the cards in your hand and all permanents on the battlefield, put it in your library, and then you draw that many cards. And it also allows you to put any number of lands straight onto the battlefield. Now, what on earth does this do? Oh, it does so much, because you're going to have so many permanents. You're going to regularly have 30, 40 permanents. So you're just going to turn all of those treasure tokens into value, into real cards, into lands on the battlefield, into concrete things that might even create even more artifacts. You could even just warp world into all of your win conditions. This is a magical combination of jank and chaos coming together to win games based on something so small as treasure tokens. All right, so what do I really think of this deck? I think it's really fun, and I'm building it right now. And the reason why I think it's so fun is I really like these alternate win conditions. I always strive to do the Hellkite Tyrant win condition. I threw mechanized production into so many decks trying to get it work. And really what I need to do is devote myself to this alternative win condition. And I feel like I really have it now. I also like how flexible this can be. I gave you a bunch of different options for commanders, and really you can cut out the colors you don't want. I honestly think you really need Grixis for this, but then you have so much customization. You could go with more of an artifact build. You could go with Thopter builds. You could go with full-on artifact tokens with the mirror works. You could even push this a little bit more competitive by going with all those artifact tutors and really throwing in the Thopter sword combo. You could go all pirates and make it janky. And do you know what else? This deck is only getting better because treasure has to be coming back. There's gonna be pirates in the next set. So please make it so that there's more treasure wizards. I really want there to be more treasure. And then I want Revel in Riches to trigger and for me to win the game. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you like this, hit that like button. If you really liked it, consider hitting that subscribe button. And if you want to talk, you can leave a comment below or hit me up on Twitter and we can have a conversation about Commander. It'll be great. All right, guys, I'll see you really soon with the announcement for who won the Super Budget Commander Staples Part 3. There'll be a video popping up here if you want to watch that one.